Hi first years, so I'm going to speak to you about transportation and deposition by moving ice. So you're going to need a couple of things for this assignment. You're going to need your hardback notebook open in front of you and a red pen and a blue pen, please. So you might want to pause the video while you go to get those ready. Okay, let's start. So glaciers are, they're not as clean and clear as maybe an ice cube that you might find in your freezer. They're actually quite dirty. They're full of rocks, debris, sand, gravel. They've been plucking and abrading all the way down the valley, and they've picked up all of these pieces of rock as glaciers are quite sticky. So there are 3 different names for whereabouts in the glacier it's transporting material. Okay, if it's carrying material on the surface, we call it supraglacial. If it's in the middle, we call it englacial. And if it's on the bottom of the glacier, we call it subglacial. So, in your hardback, can you please write in red pen a nice big heading that says transportation by glaciers. Okay, so red pen heading, transportation by glaciers. And then simply underneath in blue pen, I want you to write the 3 different places in a glacier where material can be transported. So number 1, supraglacial, supraglacial, and this is material carried on the surface of a glacier. Number 2, englacial, englacial, and this is material carried in the middle of the glacier. And number 3, subglacial, subglacial, and this is material trapped on the bottom of the glacier. Okay, so that's the 3 words we use for whereabouts the material is in the glacier as it's being transported down that lovely big widened U-shaped valley there. Right, next page, page 164 of your Cyclone textbook. The page has got 2 different diagrams. We're going to look at the first diagram. I'm going to explain what these are to you first, and then I'll tell you what to write down. So pay attention now and have a look here at this diagram. Number 1 is terminal moraine, and the word terminal means end or finish. So this is a big long ridge of material that was dropped by the glacier, and it shows or marks the furthest point travelled by that glacier. Okay. Number 2 is a swarm of drumlins, and these are little hill-shaped, they're little hills of sand and gravel that were deposited by ice. They've one steep side and one shallow side, and if you look carefully at them, the steep side is the side pointing towards the ice, and the shallow side of the hill is pointing away from the ice. We'll do drumlins in more detail in the next lesson. Number 3 is an erratic, and that is a large boulder. These are really cool. So these were picked up miles away by the ice and then dumped in another place or deposited by the ice. So only ice really would have the strength in nature to carry boulders of this size and scale. Number 4 is an esker, and eskers are long winding ridges of sand and gravel that have been deposited by the glacier and by meltwater. And number 5 is an outwash plain, and an outwash plain is a huge area of sand and gravel deposited by the meltwater of a glacier. So what do I want you to do? Well, I want you to write a nice red pen heading for me. Features of glacial deposition. Features of glacial deposition. Okay, we're just going to make a list, and then we're going to do 1 or 2 of them in detail in the next lesson. So for today's lesson, just make this following list for me, please. Number 1, terminal moraine, the end point of a glacier made of deposited material. Number 2, drumlin, an oval-shaped hill made of boulder clay. Number 3, erratic, a large boulder deposited by a glacier, often in an area where the rock type is different. Number 4 is esker, a long narrow ridge of sand or gravel. And number 5 is outwash plain, a low, flat area of sand and gravel found in front of the terminal moraine. Okay, if it's possible for you to, actually no, don't draw that diagram, it's too tricky. Okay, the next thing I want you to do for this lesson, and the final thing actually I want you to do, is to come down a couple of lines in your hardback and get your red pen and write the following heading. Moraine, M-O-R-A-I-N-E, and then do a dash and write material carried by ice. Okay, so your heading, or your red pen heading is moraine, M-O-R-A-I-N-E, dash, material carried by ice. And I'll just explain to you that depending on where the material is carried, it has a different name. So please write down the following for me. Number one, forget about recessional. So number one is going to be lateral moraine, L-A-T-E-R-A-L, M-O-R-A-I-N-E. And lateral moraine, please write down, this is material found at the side of glaciers. Lateral, to the side. Number two is medial moraine, M-E-D-I-A-L M-O-R-A-I-N-E, and write that this is material found in the middle of two side-by-side glaciers. So medial moraine is material found in the middle of two glaciers that are side by side. And finally, number three is terminal moraine, material found at the end point of a glacier's path. Terminal moraine is material found at the end point of a glacier's path. That's all, folks. Can you write up those notes nice and neat for me, take a picture and submit them via the assignment on Schoology. Thanks.